I think we just got cut off.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Now, in the studied for the staff college entrance exam, as I told you, and from Kapurthala, we had to, in the army, when people are wanting to go for the staff college course, since it's a major instructional course in your career, whole year,
Right.
as a captain or a major in those days, now major is lieutenant colonel since there's been an upgradation of rank. So every command, that is various commands of the army, arrange what is known as a pre-staff course. That before you go for the staff college entrance exam, they run a course for about 3 weeks, to train you in these various subjects and make you answer question papers and so on, so that you are successful in this exam. Now, the idea of this is that if you have to pass an examination, you must train to answer the questions of that examination. Not take your chances as it is, because it's a highly competitive exam and it's most important for your career. There are only so many vacancies. Even if you pass, only that many number are taken, starting from the man who comes first, down to so many vacancies. Now, in my day, there were hardly about 50 or 60 vacancies. So the first 50 or 60 in the whole country will be accepted, the rest were left behind. And more than that, if you got very high marks and came in what you call a competitive vacancy, that means you got marks above a distinction level, over 75%, then the people who were right on top were selected to go abroad on a similar staff college course to places like England or Germany or Japan or the United States or Australia, right, or Indonesia. And similarly, their officers would come to your staff college. So there was, at this level of young officers, you went and if you did very well, trained in somebody else's military institution and got to know a lot of friends there. And they would come to India from all these countries. For instance, if we send 2 officers to England, well, we have 2 officers from England coming to our staff college. So with the result, there is internationally, amongst the so-called democratic countries, an association of the military people to understand each other and how they speak and how they talk and how do they think, so that as you reach higher rank, you may contribute to the relationships between those two countries. It's a very useful point of view. And throughout your career, you do various courses, sometimes in other people's countries, and as they do in your country. So we sat for this staff college pre-staff course, and it's very interesting how you deal with monkeys, for instance. Now we went to Shimla, and we're staying in the Grand Hotel in Shimla, which was a hotel really, but taken over by the government for offices. And they vacated that area so that about 100 officers could be accommodated for a period of 3 weeks for this pre-staff college for training to do the entrance exam of the staff college. And there we had these rooms. Grand Hotel has 3 or 4 stories height. So we were advised that when you leave your room and come to the officers' mess for your meals, please close your windows, because the windows, if you open, there were no bars on them. And there were monkeys hanging around on the roofs and the trees. So once we had an officer who's a major from the infantry, and he forgot to close his windows. Now his office table was next to the window with all his study papers and the précis that are given for every subject that you have to study. And he left that because in the middle of studies, maps and things, so he came down for a thing. And when we finished our lunch, we went out and we saw 2 or 3 monkeys going in and out of his room through the window. So we all looked up, this road, this is what's happened. So he ran up to prevent his paper being taken away, and the monkeys noticed that he was trying to save his papers. So 2 or 3 of them grabbed his précis and notes and papers and went out on the roof. And then the chap leaned out the window, trying to encourage the monkey to give his papers back. And the monkey looked at him, looked down at the audience, that all of us were there watching what was going on, and deliberately tore these papers and threw them away. It shows that the monkey probably doesn't think much about the human study system and doesn't think much about papers and too much writing. Anyway, one had to learn while you're appreciating the art of the military art as to how to deal with monkeys, because they don't follow any rules, you see. Anyway, I managed to get through this course, and I was selected to go to the staff college, and I was scheduled to go there in 1962. That means about June or July 1962, the course was opening, and I had to travel. There were two things to be done. One was that if you were selected for the course, then they wanted a certain technical and scientific training given to cadets before they arrive at the staff college. For this, there were science courses laid on in Pune and Karki, where those officers who were not physics, chemistry, and mathematics students were given a little extra instruction on the scientific aspects, because there are a lot of weapon systems in the military for which the scientific aspects have to be understood. Because those of us who had done these found it easier. Nevertheless, we had to go for this course. And I must tell you something about the influence of the RIMC, my old school, in the military services. Because we are the only institution, starting from 1922 till today, who have boys joining at the age of 11. Now girls are going to join us also.
Yeah.
So join us at the age of 11 and leave at about 15 or 16 for the National Defense Academy now, in the old days, directly to the Indian Military Academy or to the Naval Academy or to the Air Force Academy, and get commission training and get commission. So our friends from the age of 11 till about 15, 16, were living together, eating together, playing games, boxing, everything, and studying, go to all the three services. So we have a very good relationship between each other. Even in high rank, when you can't get across to somebody who belongs to another service, we say, look, this should be done, and what about this, and what about that? He says, oh, well, sorry, I'll have to ask my chief and my senior officers, because we have to see what they think. But if he's a rim collier, he says, okay, let's do it. You see, which means that the association of students from schools and colleges, when they go to later life, because you make a lot of friends there, that association helps in your career, whatever it is, provided you maintain that relationship and that friendship.
Right.
In other words, what is the principle that comes here is that human to human relations are more important than your knowledge about the job. Because if you have human to human relations, even for instance, Prime Minister Modi is now visiting Germany and the Scandinavian countries to do trade and trade actions or whatever he wants. This friendship at the highest level is a great assistance for two countries to help each other in various aspects, and also for peace and amity between those nations, right? For instance, India is being asked, or pressurized, shall I say, to say some nasty things about Russia because of the Ukraine war. India has maintained its cool because we have good relations with them. Not only have we bought military equipment, but we know them personally. And so therefore, we want to encourage everybody else that instead of having fights, you have to have relationships with everybody so you don't have the fights. You wait and see if you develop similar relations between India and China, let us say, and India and Pakistan for that matter, because unless those diplomatic and political relations become better, there's conflict on the borders. You need peace and quiet for their public as well as our public so that you can develop. Anyway, I got through the staff college, and the little incident I wanted to talk about is that I had come for my final studies to Delhi from Kapurthala, where my brother was a lieutenant colonel, I was a major, posted at the Air Force setup in Delhi called the Sabrota Park. He was the senior engineer there. And I stayed in his house because he was wiser than I, so he could explain some of my problems. And then I told him, I said, look, the science course, there are 3 science courses, and I didn't want to go for the earlier one or the last one. I wanted to go for the middle one because because I thought that if I go to Pune, I'll take my car, take my wife with me, go and live there, and do this course for 2-3 weeks and drive back. It'll be good. It'll be a good escapade for the lady and the kids. Whereas if it's too close to my going to the staff college or too early, then I can't manage it. So I had this problem, and I had a Rimkolian visit, who's also an engineer officer called Loko Ranjan. He retired as a brigadier eventually, 4 or 5 years senior to me. And I recollect him from the RIMC because he's a very big-chested man, a barrel chest. And one in competitions was plunging. Now, plunging is that
Lost your audio, General.
you don't move any limb, and because of the push off from the side, you are propelled forward, and they want to see how long you last. Is that how long can you hold your breath, and what is the forward propulsion of your body when you dive in? To see how far you go, and the person who goes the farthest distance had this broad chest to take a deep breath and dive in, and he wouldn't come out till he reached the other end, which was the only chap in my school who could do that. So one realized that to get a big chest, you've got to do a lot of breathing exercises. Call it pranayam now, but in physical training, it's deep breathing exercises because you develop the chest so that you take good long breaths. And I must inform you, Nivedita, the rest that you take is your life. Your life is not heart and limbs and things unless you had a good deep breath. Every breath, you don't get good fresh oxygen into your body to convert your blood into fresh red blood corpuscles, which go around the body, picking up all the when they become dark, full of carbon dioxide. You breathe out carbon dioxide, you breathe in oxygen. So good breathing is essential to good health. So Loko Ranjan, as we called him, or Loko was a good example to all of us as how to take a deep breath. He was visiting, he was a colonel, I was a major. He saw my long face, he said, what's your problem? I said, I don't want to go, but the army headquarters has detailed me on the first course, and for God's sake, I want to not go on the first course, I want to go in the middle course, which happened to be in around May or so, May or June. He said, all right, here's a piece of paper. Put your name on top and your number, your military number. I did. Put down your problem. I said, I want to go for the middle course, not Flona course. With the military secretary's branch who does these postings. And he said, put your name, sign it, and your address, which unit are you in and where are you located. All right. Having got that, he takes a red pen and writes on top, Rimkolian. Rimkolians are all those who are old members of the school. Rimkolian in distress. So I said, Loko, what are you going to do with this? He said, I'm in the engineering chief's office in Delhi. I sent it to the MS branch. Every branch of the Indian Army, Navy, and Air Force has got Rimkolians in it, from senior ranks to middle piece ranks to junior ranks. Whoever is responsible will get this chip. The moment he finds that is a Rimkolian in distress, he will do what you want.
Okay.
Provided it is legal. Right? And you believe it or not, within 1 week, my posting orders were changed and I was sent to the course that I wanted to go. Just an example how brotherhood in your school days is so important in your later life. Now, so we got this, and I drove I bought a new Fiat car, it was black in color. It's a Fiat 1100, one of the first models with 4 doors. And I went to Pune with this car, drove my wife down and 2 bachas, and we stayed with one of our regimental officers. And there, I must tell you about a chap called the Bhrigu Sanskar. Have you heard this name before? Bhrigu. Bhrigu was a great Maharishi of India.
Ah, that one, yes.
All right. He wrote the histories of every human being that was born on earth.
Yes, yes.
So in a place called Kapurthala, which is beyond Jalandhar, on the way to Himachal, halfway to Himachal, is a place called Kapurthala. Not Kapurthala, but what's the place? I'll just tell you the name. It's about 2 hours run from Jalandhar, an hour and a half run. And there is a whole lot of ancient manuscripts there run by certain Swamis of Bhrigu's Sanskar.
That
It
Bhrigu
means
Sangita.
Sanskar is the history of the future of anyone. Huh?
Bhrigu Sangita, they say.
Yeah.
No? Bhrigu Sangita.
So anyway, sorry?
Bhrigu Sangita.
Yeah. So when General Chaudhary, are we over with the time?
No, go ahead. Go for it. Go ahead. You are speaking about the Bhrigu Sangita.
All right. Yeah. So Bhrigu Sanskar, when General Chaudhary was commanding 11th Corps in Jalandhar, he happened to go there because there were some units there. Somebody told him, let you go to this Bhrigu Sanskar and find out the history. So he managed to find his Patri, the Janam Patri,
Yes.
or the Kundli as you call it.
Yes.
And that was interpreted by those people that you are the future Senapati of India.
Okay.
Senapati means commander-in-chief. So anyway, now he was the army commander in Southern Army in Pune. And Srupi and I went and called on him.
Hoshiarpur.
Correct?
Hoshiarpur.
Correct.
Yeah.
Hoshiarpur.
Hoshiarpur.
So General Chaudhary, we went and called on him. And while he was giving us a drink, he mentioned that fellow Bhrigu Sanskar is all false. So I said, why? He said, because he said that I'm the future Senapati of India.
Yeah.
And I'm not, and I can't. I said, why not? He said, because the other day I was driving with my wife to Hyderabad on a visit. He was driving his staff car. He was the army commander. And he suddenly had a heart attack. He slumped over this car. Now driving at a very high speed because he used to drive at a very high speed. So he slumped over the car and his wife didn't know what to do. And she tried to pull the brake or something. The car was going straight when this huge man, he's a big man, slumped over the steering wheel. Luckily, the car stayed on the road. And then the driver leaned up from the back and switched off the engine. So slowly the car came to a halt because it was in gear. And his life and their life was saved because the car remained on the road. But when an officer has a heart attack, then he comes down in his physical capability and hence his medical, if he is not fully fit, he cannot be promoted in any rank. Every rank of the army, you have to be fully physically and mentally fit. If you're found in any way lacking in this, promotion is out. So he said, I've had a heart attack. I'm now not fully fit. You have recovered. And therefore, to become commander-in-chief is very difficult. To become the chief is very difficult. And so I have to retire. The Bhrigu Sanskar doesn't know what he's talking about. Just to tell you what happened, in 1962, the Chinese attacked and the Indian army ran away. We ran away because we were not prepared. And though the Prime Minister Nehru said, throw out the Chinese, it's all very well saying throw out the army, Chinese army, but this is a high altitude region. We didn't have the clothes for it. We didn't have the weapons for it. We didn't have the tracks. Modern army requires about 300 to 500 tons of stores in a division. Division is about 15,000 men every day. You can't do that if there are no tracks and no roads. If you got a mule track, you can't support a division. That's why the Chinese have built so many roads in Tibet. And now we are trying to build roads on our side of the border, which is more difficult. So the Chinese attacked in 1962. The then army chief was sacked, Thapar. And the government decided, fit or not fit, the best person to be the chief is this very good tactical and strategic commander, that is General J. Chaudhary. So Bhrigu Sanskar turned out to be right. See? So that just shows that human beings can calculate 100 things, but what's going to happen is unknown. And we call it fate. Americans call it happenstance. And many of us feel it is ordained what is going to happen. Nevertheless, I do think that individuals have some control over what's going to happen to them, provided their character and conduct is of high order. Therefore, so I'll quote to you the last verse of a poem by a chap called Henley, who wrote Invictus.
Right.
And the last paragraph of this 4 paragraphs goes like this: it matters not how straight the gate. Now, the gate is the gate to heaven, and a strait is a narrow area, like the straits of Malacca, for instance, or between two, it's called a strait. Strait is a difficult path. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. The scroll is St. Peter's scroll at the entrance to heaven to see all your misdeeds and bad deeds, to decide whether you're fit to enter heaven or you go to hell and burn like hell. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul, which I think is correct for a man of character and conduct, because if he behaves in a proper way, the vibes that he creates amongst all his surroundings, even amongst bad people and good people, are positive. And he gets those vibes back and everybody supports him. So that's it. Did I carry on with the staff college, or do we have